Hello again. We've all heard of these words: lag, release, lean, and if you really think about it, you've got to hold the lag, then you've got to release, but the club's still got to be leaning. Contradictory ways of explaining what I suppose globally we'd just call the release through the golf ball. So I'd like to today to try and explain how you do that and maybe give you another way of kind of looking at it. See you in a moment. In my last video, I was trying to show you a way of getting a feeling or a drill to get the club down to round about your right thigh and then release the club whilst holding the lean through impact. And I've had a few emails basically asking me to go into a little bit more detail about how we do that. I think the reason why is that, especially when we're talking about lag, a lot of people have the feeling of holding the lag, holding the angle between the club and their wrists until they reach the position where they're supposed to release it. Now, it's all well and good me saying, okay, the deepest point in the golf swing is opposite your right thigh for the hands, and at that point you should be releasing the golf club. But that's really not true. If we're honest, the club is starting to release from the very top of the golf swing, and I'm not resisting the release whatsoever. However, I am using the golf club as a lever or a lever, and I'm holding the angle between my wrists and the golf club by applying forces to the grip end or butt end of the club. If you basically think of the golf club not as a golf club but as simply a stick, if I press down at this end, the other end's going to want to go up. So if I get to the top of my golf swing and pull down and press down on the grip end of the golf club, if I'm doing that hard enough, then the forces working on the club head in the opposite direction should be enough to hold the angle, or at least to keep the angle relative to what it was at the top. So at the top of the golf swing, especially in the kind of transition phase, you're going to get something around kind of 90 degrees of angle between kind of your fore lead arm and the shaft. But as you come down, you're most certainly going to lose some of that. You don't want to be trying to actively hold that. If you do, then it's very likely that your right elbow will also block and you won't get the club deep enough before you get that change of direction in your hands. So try and keep your grip tight, but your wrists loose, if you can understand that one. And then you're trying to get this pressing down and pulling down at the same times with the arm and hands as you're opening your hip or getting your left hip back into its starting position, maybe a little beyond if you're flexible enough. Now, a lot of time we're talking about bowing of the wrists, and obviously if I can bow the left wrist a little bit in this motion down, then that will also help me to actually keep the club head up in the air. So as I come down, I do have a little bit of the feeling of not only pulling the club down, but allowing the left wrist to bow. That will also help me to keep a little bit more hinge and allow the club head again to use the inertia which is applied to it by the downward movement of the arms to actually keep this angle. Going from there into the release is really a case of getting to the deepest point or timing the deepest point in your swing, which, as I was saying, is going to be somewhere between kind of the right thigh in the middle of your swing, depending on how much rotational movement you had in your hips in the downswing. But let's say the right thigh, just to give you a point. And at that point, really, you want to have the feeling of the hips and shoulders opening. The left hip goes back, the left shoulder goes up, and that's pulling the arms up. Now that's going to have the opposite effect on the lever. If I pull the grip end up, then the head is going to go down. And obviously, if I'm not holding the club tightly, then that's exactly what's going to happen. However, if I've been trying to hold the lag, then when the hands go up, the lag is basically held, and I'm either going to top it, socket it, or get some kind of other poor shot out of as an equation of what I've just done, which was wonderful tongue-twisting English. I'm very sorry about that one. We'll try and move on. Given that the wrists are loose and I'm rotating, then I'm pulling the left hand up and around my body, and the club will release down into the back of the ball. But there I'm supposed to have lean. That means I don't want really the release to look like a rolling of the arms. And the rolling of the arms will really happen when the arms, or the rolling of the club and the wrist will happen when the arms stop. So if I get there and basically my hips stop, my shoulders stop, my arms stop, then there's nothing else that's going to stop the club from overtaking my hands and getting this kind of flip going on. So what I'm trying to do is keep the hips and arms rotating, get the arms actually leaving the side of my body, the feeling that the left arm is allowed to move away from my body, and that will help me to keep the lean a little bit longer. Obviously, the more hip rotation, the more shoulder rotation you can get in this kind of final part of the release, the easier it is to get your arms out ahead of you, and the longer you're going to keep inertia on the golf club, and therefore keep the club head behind your hands and keep what everybody is talking about nowadays, which is lean through the golf ball. As soon as the club head really overtakes your hands, you've lost control of it. So you don't really want that happening until after you've actually made contact with the golf ball. So if we put it all together again, I'm taking the club back, as we've said before, to the top of my backswing, and I haven't got really the feeling of keeping a too tight a grip on it or in any way blocking my wrists. Then as the hip moves back, I'm moving my arms down actively and trying to get the left wrist to bow a little, and that will help me to keep a little bit more angle, even if it means that the club face is actually closing slightly as I do that. At this point, the hip is opening up totally, the left shoulder is going back and up, which is pulling my arms up, and I'm allowing the club to come down, whilst at the same time allowing my arms to move forward and around my body in the feeling to the left of target, and this will help me to keep lean on the golf club a little more. Just a last tip, because you've been so patient and stayed with me so long. If you are practicing this, try and get it into a fluent movement without a ball before you try and hit a ball. Try and get the thing going around your body and getting a pretty good feeling of all these things we've talked about before you go to a ball. When you go to a ball, don't think about it, do it. And that way you'll get a pretty good feeling of whether your body is capable of doing this movement unconsciously or not. And if it isn't, then practice, practice, practice. As ever, I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you liked it, please hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, then do that. Don't forget to hit the bell. That'll give you notifications the next time that I post a video. I wish you all a very nice day. Enjoy the good weather here in Munich. We've got a beautiful day, and I'll see you all very shortly. Bye-bye now.